The harvest appeared less plentiful than last season. I imagine sloppy seed handling evoked a stroke of tardy planting, and the crops we'd have harnessed mid-November but only brushed the blossom bracket, then soon sacrificed lives to high school jackets when the frost hit. I sunk to find the warmth beneath the mosses, with a plan to tunnel past after the rains and run their courses. But alas, the portraits of these frostbit corpses tortured in the grass offered this torch support of one tall glass and nauseous. And I'm asking you, why is the spice of fly hiding in strangers when they know what's top the food chains? I can spot biters for acres, now be gracious. These minstrels turn the bully psycho-civil by dissolving the candy-coated image down to the pixels. The upbringing of self-style freedom brigade investors, and their studies connecting one-hit wonders with dust collectors puts it down. And it's down beneath this happy sing-along, so let's take it further down. We'll let Dante decide which ring I'm on. Nova, the elders took positions in advance march. Parts plain as steamed hawk in the rain of my cantina. I'm like, point. I guess I can spare a splash for a couple of heads. Counterpoint. During my famine, I never got broke you or bread. Well, equation of intrigue. Yes, let me fence it for a bit. These tents of leave soaking before handout token. Shut the fuck up. Drama like Kabuki with a heart of dirt. Skull fuck crossbone, hence my birth. It hurts. Check, must not sleep. Must warn others. Trust blocks creep where the dust storm hovers. I melt my habitat for almost everything I want. Sometimes I take it all and still can't feel this pitfall in my gut. And I'm like, must not sleep. Must warn others. Trust blocks creep where the dust storm hovers. I'm trying to walk on top of sunshine, but it's ridiculous at times. That's why I'm torn with this warning. The glory of our advance. Fire ants to water beetles. Freemasons adjacent to pacing on pins and needles. Pupil turn pedagogue benediction to my dream. In a billion bottle rockets off the golden mezzanine. I plug the petals off a classic blood rose one at a time, gripping the stem and right, invite the thorns to dig up in my lifelines. A metaphor for nighttime. Any up the slight cost of exhaustion to salute the moon above paradise lost. And you're a spectator, stringent. Inch my sacred and shoveling cold into my earthworm soul. Burrow up through the dirt with bloody digit, lick my knuckles clean. Open the corporate clusters, holding hands round the abode of the damned. Now what's your poison? Starlight in a mazer with a nicotine chaser. Sipping clean, savor the taste of sit and dream later. The eyelids pivot back upon their hinges 20 miles across the glassy-eyed window of wonders to pass by. Now I'm 6'4" with a 6th floor walk up just to recline with no free time. Alarm storms denied. My daytime's on some yes sir. Okay sir, right away sir. Sir, do you mind if I breathe sir? Oh you do? Well excuse me sir, fuck you. I breathe slow. I'm running with these fantastic amalgams, painting casket bound careers to peers gunning with plastic albums. Security's the javelin, catch it. Labor clocked in at 7-6 and haven't clocked that ever since. Yo, must not sleep, must warn others. Trust blocks creep where the dust storm hovers. I melt my habitat for almost everything I want. Sometimes I take it all and still can't feel this pitfall in my gut. And it's like must not sleep, must warn others. Trust blocks creep where the dust storm hovers. I'm trying to walk on top of sunshine, but it's ridiculous at times. That's why I'm torn with this warning. Feeling it's like must not sleep, must warn others. Trust blocks creep where the dust storm hovers. I melt my habitat for almost everything I want. Sometimes I take it all and still can't feel this pitfall in my gut. And it's like must not sleep, must warn others. Trust blocks creep where the dust storm hovers. I'm trying to walk on top of sunshine, but it's ridiculous at times. That's why I'm torn with this warning. Feeling it's like that.
All right. Hey, guys. It's been a hot minute, but we're back. Notify Live. I'm going to try to start doing these again on a regular basis. But please don't subscribe or, any of that stuff, because then I feel like I have to do it, and then I'm just going to avoid it. But anyways, good to see you guys. I got no agenda today. So if you're out there listening, it's really open mic. I want to kind of hear from you guys, and plan to give away a couple of tickets to SOS. I don't even know how I'm going to give them away yet. It's going to get elaborate with some sort of like trivia or something, but probably not even going to do that. Tell you what, if you're interested and you want an SOS ticket, it's on me. Put it in the chat. Just tell me in the chat that you want a ticket. Otherwise, yeah. Curious to hear what you guys have been up to since I've been gone for a while. I did have an opportunity to check out a few conferences over the last several months. Went to the Viva Summit, which was actually, pretty cool. Super heavy on Viva stuff, but I thought it was pretty cool. They were trying to actually put on some site level information and even try to cater specifically to sites. So, putting sites together in a room giving someone an opportunity, some sponsors an opportunity to come talk to sites and get to know them. It's kind of informal. It was actually pretty cool, and actually got into some pretty interesting conversations with some sponsor folks. And, who knows, maybe a study or two comes out of it. But at the very least, I applaud them for trying something. Looks like my internet is not working. Maybe it is. I can't tell. All right, Maria, if you're interested, shoot me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll set you up with the ticket. Done. One down. Lee, what's up, man? I don't know if my video is like jacked up or not, but it's showing frozen on my side, so at least I look completely ridiculous in the way that it froze. So give me a second. Let me see if I can fix this. Cool. I think I did it. Anyways, what's up, Lee? Thanks, Mary. I think I fixed it. I'm trying out a new camera, so I'm not surprised because, it's just what's going to happen. Try something new, you get punished for it immediately. Thank you, Marianne. And thank you, Maria. Maria, if you didn't hear me, shoot me a message on LinkedIn, shoot me a direct message, and I'll get you set up with the ticket. Cool. Anyways, yeah. So the Viva Summit was cool. A lot of stuff that maybe wasn't particularly that exciting to me as somebody on the site level, but I did appreciate that they tried to cater to sites. So having, I think there were maybe a dozen, between 12 and 16 sites. And it was almost like a speed dating with someone from a sponsor, coming in and talking to sites. And it was pretty cool. Hopefully they continue to build on that, get more sites involved, because, I think we need more of that. Also went to the innovation gathering in Westchester, which I thought was pretty cool. It's probably not like the most well known about. I know that it's sort of on purpose, a smaller, conference. I even hesitate to call it a conference because it's fairly unique. There's not there's not like a vendor floor or like a sponsor floor where, you go around and get a bunch of swag. It's really more about, it's like half TED Talk setup and then half dive team. So, it's all focused on the clinical trial space, but, there's like a dozen dive teams or something like that are all addressing or trying to solve a question, that is an issue in our field. Again, I think it's a really cool format. You get you can pick which, a topic you want to address, but you get to, work with people you wouldn't otherwise talk to. So I thought it was pretty cool. I had somebody on a sponsor side on my team, and we were trying to address how to incorporate the patient or site voice, into clinical trials. I can't remember exactly the way it was worded, but it's pretty cool because you can essentially come up with, a product or a company or a campaign of some kind that helps address the problem. And it was pretty neat to see, a bunch of different groups come together and come up with different solutions to some of the biggest problems in the industry. Again, very cool, very small. I think it was 130 people or something like that. I don't know if they're going to continue to open it up, more to the general clinical trial public, I guess, so to speak, but definitely worth looking into. I think it's every October in Westchester, Pennsylvania. They're pretty cool. And then, I did not go to SCRS. I don't know if anybody listening out there went to SCRS. If you did, I'd be curious to hear. And also, if you're listening and you want to come on, just shoot me a message and I'll send you a link. This is really, if it's not clear, I have no agenda. Just kind of going off the top of my head here. So you want to come on, talk, you got something on your mind, by all means, let me know. And I will gladly send you a link. Here, let's see. Can we vote for top 10 site needs by 2030? Well, Clara, what do you think what are your top 10? Curious. I feel like I could go on and on potentially about that. Kylie. Where were you, Kylie? Were you at Viva or were you at Innovation Gathering? Dindy, if you're interested in a free ticket, send me a direct message on LinkedIn and I will get you a free ticket. That's all you got to do. Easy. See? I made it too easy. Next time I'll come up with something a little more engaging and fun. It's lazy this week. We are dealing with tornadoes in Oklahoma for some reason in November, which is kind of insane. But so be it. Shout out to Cherie, my clinical research coordinator, who was here yesterday morning as sirens were going off to be at a colonoscopy for a Crohn's ulcerative colitis patient. Dedication from our CRC staff here. Kylie, oh, you're at SCRS, Kylie. Kylie, what are you doing? Come on and talk about it. Are you busy? Are you at a place where you can jump on and tell me about SCRS? All right, Marianne, shoot me a message. Direct message on LinkedIn. I'll get you a ticket. All right, that's 3 claim tickets. That's probably all I'll do today. I'll probably do this more often as we get closer. March 2025, we still got quite a bit of time leading up, but really I want to have as many, especially, well, not even sites. I mean, that's not fair. I really do want people across the whole clinical trial spectrum there. That's really the whole idea. The focus is on sites, but sites can't do anything in a vacuum. So we actually this year are seeing that we're getting some pharma sponsors come in and sponsor, which is nice because we didn't really get that the first year. So that makes me hopeful that people are actually, paying attention and going to join in. Kylie, awesome. I'll send you a message on LinkedIn, Kylie, with the link. If I'm smart enough to do this without messing everything up. All right, bear with me, guys. Oof. This is exciting. This is really exciting, probably for you guys to watch me. Send a message on LinkedIn. Boom. Okay, message sent, Kylie. So I'll keep an eye on you to come in. And then Lee, I saw a message from you too. Might have you join in. Clara, no, it didn't cause any issues with central lab pickup. They were kind of, tornadoes were kind of fairly spun up quick and left. But, it's weird to wake up in a morning in November and have to avoid tornadoes. I mean, even in Oklahoma, that's like a spring thing. So luckily it didn't really affect anything. They moved out of here quickly. And as far as I know, didn't cause any sort of like big time damage or anything like that. There's Kylie. Hey.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Can't turn down an invite.
I'm glad, and thank you for coming on, man. I get on these and I'm like, shit, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. So it's nice to have someone else come in, and this makes it a little easier. It takes a little pressure off of, I'm to come
No
up.
problem. You said you got tornadoes?
Yeah, we got tornadoes yesterday morning. Like, again, super weird for like November in Oklahoma.
Yeah, weird.
You were at SCRS?
I was. My camera's blurry for some reason. It was awesome. I went with Avocare, so we had a group of, I want to say 7 or 8 of us, and it was my first time going. I have wanted to go for several years, but it was just incredible. I felt like the panels were very informative. There were they would take a poll, like who's from sponsor, who's from CRO, who's a service provider, who's from sites, and there was a good mix from each of the different ones. So I feel like each panel or breakout session I attended, there was a good representation. There was a perspective from each of them.
Yes.
And a lot of open dialogue. A lot of times I whine on a daily basis about like just don't get it. They don't understand the site perspective. And so it was just a good opportunity to get in a room and share what frustrations are from a site perspective. Obviously, they had a gala Saturday night. That was really cool. Very opportunity to dress up. If you work from home like me, I took that opportunity.
Sure.
For those that know Casey Orvin, he and I sang Shania Twain karaoke Friday night, which there should be no evidence out there, but I mean, it was so fun.
I'll find it. I'm sure someone has a blurry, cell phone video.
Oh, I kept telling him, I'm like, you are the number one Shania Twain fan. You've got to do it. And then I put my foot in my mouth and offered to be his backup dancer to get him to do it. So we had fun.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. I mean, and yeah, I like especially during panels, having an idea of like who's in the room. That's not always clear because I think I've been surprised by, not unlike you, obviously, of sort of shout at clouds, about the things that bother me. But I do think sponsors do care. They just don't oftentimes have like a direct mechanism to hear that stuff. So it is, more valuable than just complaining. But it feels nice when you know that someone's in the room who could possibly make a difference and maybe do something about it.
Right. I've always suggested like roundtables, like give the site a seat at the table. Like feasibility questionnaires are so transactional, and half the time we're scared to say the wrong thing, right? Like I can't say that we don't have a centrifuge because I know you're not going to pick me, so I'm going to put yes, and then I'll go get one if I get it out. Yeah. But if you bring a site to the table and you create a safe environment, which I keep saying every time I get an opportunity, create a safe environment and let us tell you the truth. Maybe it would cut down on the amount of money you're spending downstream on escalation calls and longer recruitment periods and add-on sites and all of that. But I just feel like this was a great opportunity. It felt safe to be able to actually voice what concerns were and share perspectives. So
yeah, I know feasibility has been like your big thing, right, for a while.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's been any improvement, any movement, or at least are people paying more attention, or are we just kind of still playing the same game at this point?
From my perspective, it's the same game. But I'm not beaten down to where I won't try. I will admit I'm getting tired, but there's still a spark in me that wants to change it. So anytime we have an opportunity as a site network to get in front of, Avocare is IQVIA's site network, right? So I have a direct link to CRO, and where I can say, this just happened the other day. They were asking me we need to see a funnel for this, like your patient access, and then what percentage of those patients can you engage with and then show up. And I was like, listen, I'll throw a funnel together for you. But if you think we're making these on the regular to like inform a decision or a strategy later on, that's not really how it works at the site. It's like, even if I made a funnel and I said, based on our access, based on these assumptions, we should be able to enroll 5 patients. If I say 5 and you come back and say, well, that's not a high enough number, I'm going to say, well, what number do you need me to say?
Right.
And then I'm going to stop making those stupid funnels because that's 3 hours of my time and it's never a high enough number for you to pick me. Hence that unsafe environment.
Yeah.
We're saying what we need to say to get the work to keep our business in play.
Yeah, no, it just creates a bad environment for everybody. Because if you have to, I don't want to say lie because, we're not lying, but if you have to stretch, to continue to feel like you need to do that to win business. And then, look, because again, we're not seeing enrolling too many patients is not a problem, right? Everybody sucks at it to some degree or another, depending, obviously, the caveats to that. So,
right.
Yeah, it does. It just creates a bad situation where everyone's holding their cards a little too close, instead of just being like, look, I've been shocked. I don't know, because we've done the same thing. Like, we've tried to get better about being it's almost like careful what you wish for, because there's been studies that were like, look, we think we can only enroll like 2 patients, and in my mind that's like too low to be worthwhile, and so I'm assuming we're going to be told no, and instead they're like 2 patients, great, you're in. I'm like, shit.
Really?
All right, well, now we got to yeah, I'm like, are you sure about that? And obviously you can still always back out as a site, but I guess I've been surprised by just being not even, I mean, conservative, even not, not even just, I'll say realistic, but on the conservative side, we've still managed to win study opportunities, which I guess isn't a bad thing. So
Right.
they're being realistic at that point.
Right. I was in a call the other day. We had proposed sites for a study, and they were stressing to me, like, we really need to make sure these are good sites. This is a small biotech, and this is their only product, their only molecule, and this trial has to go well. And I was like, so if we don't enroll patients, we actually lose money. So it's just as important, if not more, that we're successful. Like, that misconception is so frustrating to me, that on the sponsor and CRO side, they're like, are you sure? And we're like, the risk is higher for us.
Yeah.
If we take your study and we don't enroll patients, we still have to pay for the coordinators at the site. And you know what I mean? Like, I just think that's why SCRS I thought was so great, is because you could, in a safe space, share perspective. And I saw a lot of those like light bulb moments people were sharing. And it was like, I hadn't thought about that from your perspective.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I find it like confusing, and I'm like, do you think we don't want to enroll patients? It does not. It hurts us.
Right.
And I feel, terrible for like my coordinators who I'm like, hey, cool, you've got 6 studies, but 4 of them are basically garbage. Like, or, I say garbage is not making a judgment about the study per se, but there's something about it that's made it incredibly challenging to enroll. Maybe it is bad study design. Maybe it's the particular relationship or setup we have here that makes it challenging for us, whatever it is. But you know what? You still have to do booster calls every 2 weeks. You still have to send them pre-screening logs. You still have to do retraining for all the different things that come up. There's still a lot of work that goes into it, and it is a loss. And that gets challenging, and I mean, sometimes just downright depressing if you're, smaller site.
Right.
Yeah, Nelson, I mean, it's a great question. I don't know why we take the garbage studies. I think it's more complicated, maybe. And if I knew I was taking garbage, and maybe this is just I'm not good at picking study opportunities. Not that it's always up to me entirely, but I also have a feeling your particular model may dictate that you take more garbage studies than others. Not yours, but like, look, we're embedded in this hospital system. We're working with some doctors that are like key opinion leaders that get approached about doing studies, and they want to do these studies. I can look at the study, or my coordinator can look at the study and be like, this is not a very good study. But the PI is very motivated to, work with this pharmaceutical company or whatever the case may be. I'm not in a position to like piss off my partners or clients or whatever you want to call them, the doctors in which we work. So sometimes we do find that we have, especially in particular therapeutic areas, studies that are less than ideal, because our decisions aren't necessarily about just financial outcome, I guess, if that makes sense. Obviously we have to have enough good studies to keep the doors open. But I think it gets a little bit trickier, especially if you're embedded in a big system where you got to make the doctor happy, you want to make the system happy. There's a lot more considerations that go into it. Again, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I don't think that's a small thing that may persuade sites to take otherwise not great studies for them.
I think it could be relationship building too, right? Like maybe AstraZeneca has a super challenging respiratory study, but if you can get a few patients on that, it'll open the doors to a really cool obesity study coming down the road. I've seen.
Yes. And we've tried to at least ask that question. Like, is taking this study, I mean, yes, maybe we're not going to immediately like maybe you enroll 1 to 2 patients and it's sort of a net loss, or maybe we sort of break even, who knows. But does that get us now embedded or in a relationship with this sponsor or CRO that's next, going to help us down the road? So, if you take that sort of long-term approach, and sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. I think it's at least an important question to ask, and sometimes you just have to live with that. And I think that's tough, but it is what it is. So Patty, difference is AMCs who also have financial loss and don't feel it as much or at all compared to a private site. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I worked in a department of an AMC, and I feel like they didn't care at all if we made money. I know we lost money, but it was basically subsidized by the rest of the clinic department or the department. So it was just not a focus. And I don't know if that sort of like seeps into the bigger ecosystem, but I don't know. I don't know if that's something that AMCs used to dominate, right? Maybe they still do in terms of like percentage of sites. So if that's been the model of like, hey, who cares if sites make money? Does that sort of permeate even as we have now more private sites maybe than we ever have? I don't know. Nelson, I think a lot of times sites are either too greedy or too desperate to turn down trials they probably can't perform on. It's fair to judge the sites for failing to perform, right? Do what?
That first part's a little triggering. A lot of times sites are either too greedy. What makes a site greedy? Like, we literally don't make money unless we have studies that enroll patients. So greed would.
It doesn't. I get what he's trying to say, I think, but I don't think it doesn't follow, because it's not greedy. And again, you're losing money.
And too desperate. I mean, we've taken studies we're not very excited about to, at a bare minimum, I would rather enroll a couple patients to keep the lights on and our coordinators employed versus no studies at all. So have I in my 15 years, have I taken a study that I'm not that excited about for that reason? Yeah. But have I ever taken a study that I don't think I can perform on at all? No, because that does not make sense.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And again, maybe I overplayed a little hyperbole, but like we don't taking things that were like, no, this is impossible for us to enroll. I mean, I guess I want to make that clear. And is it fair to judge the sites for failing to perform? I mean, I suppose it is. But I think if you have, I don't know, look at some of these newsletters if you get them. And if more sites are failing to perform than are succeeding, then do you think that's a site problem? Or maybe a problem a little higher up the chain? So yeah, that's the risk you run, right? Is being judged because you don't perform well when you take a stretch on a trial that you think you may be able to perform in and you don't. I don't know yet how big of a problem that is. There's certainly studies that we've not done well with for sponsors, but then they still come back and then we do great on the next trial. It's not clear to me if there's necessarily a consequence to this judgment,
There at least has to be, I know we're all very data driven, but honestly, 9 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10, maybe we've run metrics and we enrolled, I don't know, I feel like anytime we have not met a goal, most times there was a reason, and you've got to find the context. So the goal was 50, we only enrolled 12. I'm not just putting that in front of someone. I'm asking questions, and it's usually we were activated 2 weeks late, enrollment closed 2 weeks early, we didn't get IP, we didn't get lab kit. There's something that happened that prevented us from meeting a goal that we had set. There are occasions where it was just harder to enroll than we thought, and we did not hit that goal. But a lot of times there were other factors out of our control that impacted our ability to hit a goal. So is it fair to judge a site only on a data point? No. I think that there needs to be additional conversation, because could be a reason out of our control for why we perform that way.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I do do we think that there's a lot of like qualitative measurement going on? I mean, I have a feeling it's more of like, okay, you underperform. Do CROs or sponsors really care? Are they like digging down to that level of why?
I don't think they're digging down. I think they're seeing the number and making a judgment.
Yeah, no, I assume that's the case too.
Yeah. There's such a heavy emphasis on experience. Like I've had so much trouble getting newer investigators work because there's this hyper focus on experience and then performance. You take a study, and I think PPD sends out a report to their premier or I don't know what they call them, their network of sites that shows here's your performance on PPD studies. And then I get worried, if that data point is not favorable, are they just saying we don't want to include them on the next study, and that's why we never got an FQ, because nobody's coming out and asking more questions about that? The data's there and they make a decision based on the data alone, which can be explained most times.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't disagree. And yeah, I mean, to Clara's point, I mean, there is a lot, I think, outside of the site's control. And again, that may vary depending on what your particular site model is, and how you operate. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to these different models. I don't know, like, you guys wholly own like standalone sites? Is that pretty much the model for you guys?
For Avocare?
Yeah.
We are primarily embedded. So Avocare is made up of, we have 2 multi-specialty clinics that were legacy Avocare. They acquired Benchmark Research, which is 9 dedicated sites. A couple of them are embedded within urgent cares, but primarily dedicated. And then CCT Research was acquired, and they have 2 dedicated buildings and 30 embedded sites.
Gotcha. So a little bit of a mixture then.
Yeah.
And I mean, and do you find, and even here to Nelson's question, like, can you simply compare a site's performance versus the other site? Yeah, you can do that. I mean, no one's stopping you from doing that. What factors out of a single site's control, but not all sites control? So, I mean, I'll give you an example, Nelson. We did a trial for infant formula. And it was brought here to this hospital system that's a, Catholic-run hospital. They cannot, and again, I'll probably mess up the details, but because of their Catholic ownership, or maybe it's not specifically because of that, nonetheless, they cannot essentially like offer formula first. They have to offer breastfeeding, and they have to go through like these steps before they can even offer formula to a new mother. You can imagine in a place where that's the case and a place where that isn't the case, they may have very different outcomes. If you can immediately offer formula to a new mother or an expecting mother, or if you almost have to avoid the conversation until they insist upon formula feeding, which oftentimes would already put the baby outside of the window to be in the trial. Now, I mean, I guess you can argue, if that's something you could have figured out first, or you could go down the rabbit hole. But I mean, you could understand how that factor alone would very much be inside one side's control and not inside another, especially the model, because I don't run the hospital. I can't tell the hospital what to do. That's their program. So my ability to impact that is literally zero. So I don't know. That seems like a bit, maybe an easy example. But yeah, at the end of the day, you can just stand back and see who did good and who did bad. And if that's all you care about, then that's perfectly fine. I have a feeling that really is what it is at the end of the day. They just want to hit their numbers. But I think there's more nuance to it than that. And I would even guess within your network, you see sites operate differently or have different, clinical things that happen that may dictate whether a trial would be more successful or not. I mean, even standard of care is not standard. So if, one doctor is doing things differently than another doctor, that could very well impact the outcome of your enrollment. totally at the yeah, and that's fair. Worth using to decide whether or not to select the PI again. Yeah, I mean, obviously, knowing what we know now, that's not something we would do. The fault of the site, yeah, I mean, it's the fault of the site. That's still a factor that may be outside of our control, whether it's our fault or not our fault. We were awarded. We even knew this like going in, so we knew it would be more challenging. We thought there were ways that we could mitigate that risk, but sure, I mean, it's our fault, but that wasn't your question. The question was, are there factors that may be out of our control? And I feel like it was. But again, I'm sure there are dozens of examples and other people could give them. So yeah, I don't know. But again, I'm guessing, again, you guys probably see like, and when you're placing or deciding where a study should go, probably it may be impacted by those sorts of factors, I would assume. Not everything's the same across the board.
Maria had a good question up there. She said that her site has a good framework, personnel, diverse population to enroll patients. Our issue or challenge is how we branch out to other different therapeutic or observational areas. What conference or connections are available to help sites navigate on how to successfully grow sites? I do think that branching out into different therapeutic areas is a good idea. That's what we've been talking about here at Avocare. When you've got a lot of, we have a team dedicated to looking at other sites to bring on, right? So I always joke with them. I said, you bring me another family practice internal med that's never done research before, and I have to scream. I can't get anyone. There is such a heavy focus on experience that I can't get them studies. It's so hard right now. But as far as finding different, like how to find different studies in different therapeutic areas, if that's the question, look at sponsor pipelines and what they're focused on. Like if you want to get into rheumatology studies, go look at the pipelines of different big pharma and see who's focused in those different areas. That's what we tend to, if we bring on a new specialty, that's where our BD team focuses, which sponsors are ones that we want to interact with most. Look at CROs too, and what a lot of times they're heavily focused in certain areas too.
Yeah, I think you, as much as you can, leverage the relationships you have. So if you do have a relationship with someone in your therapeutic area or areas, whatever those may be, they have colleagues that are their same role oftentimes across other therapeutic areas. And I think it's okay to ask, like, hey, great, we've been killing these cardiovascular trials for you guys. We see that you have a rheumatology pipeline. Could you get me in touch with the rheumatology version of you, whatever that may be, an MSL or a site liaison? So oftentimes, if you ask and you have a good relationship, you can get introduced to the other therapeutic areas that sponsor may hold. It's potentially a long game, but it's something we're getting better at doing it more intentionally, and it does pay off. And again, especially if you have a good track record with that sponsor. Nelson, it's a bigger problem in research that sites that perform well aren't told the next time around when they aren't reselected or considered for other trials, having it held against us for failing to perform. Fair. Yeah, I mean, you do well on a trial, and I don't know, I guess I don't see that too much, that we kick ass and then they're like, nah. Maybe, I don't know. Sometimes I guess it's hard to know if we were considered at all for new trials because we may never even know about that trial opportunity. But isn't that it? I mean, again, I think, and Kylie can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's part of the thing is having a more like a real relationship so that you can know those things and not just like, here, fill out a piece of paper. If you don't get a piece of paper, you don't even know that you missed an opportunity or that an opportunity existed. So yeah, I don't even think that makes sense to me. And yeah, if you do fail to perform, then you held it against you. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're wrong, and I fully expect that if we, screw up a study or don't do well, that, it's likely we may not be selected again. Now, Does that mean we're not going to take a chance and give it a try anyway? I don't know. Maybe not. Because again, which do? You say no enough times that they stop asking you? Do you keep trying and do the best you can? Do the best that you can with what you've got.
And I found that like personal biases can play into this stuff, right? Like we had a physician who's done 145 vaccine trials, and he was rejected post PSV for a vaccine study. And it was the first time I'd ever seen him rejected. And I was like, how? No. What? And in digging in, it was a personal bias. It was a project manager who had worked on a previous study and must have had a scuffle with the office manager or something. And in that case, it's like, no, I had an opportunity to say, yeah, no, personal biases can't factor in here. I need to reconsider. I had an opportunity to escalate, basically. But that kind of stuff can play in too to whether you get studies or not. And I do agree that if a site does not perform, that yes, anytime that you go pay for a service and you don't get what you asked for, it can be held against you and people don't come back. But sites should be given an opportunity to defend themselves and explain. And sometimes the explanation is, yeah, we had a bad coordinator and we're really sorry. And we understand. Other times it's no, you didn't give us enough vaccine. You activated us late. We actually enrolled 6 people in a matter of 12 hours, but that's all you gave us to enroll. I just think there is no research without sites, and we just get the shit end of the stick so often. And we can't
just context, like in a focus on the context. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the numbers don't always tell the story. And again, Nelson, like I'm happy to accept that if I do a bad job, I might not get chosen again. Regardless of context, even though I could say like, oh, hey, like, yeah, but this happened, and they don't care. Now, I think we have to keep in mind, like, I don't know, for us, we're not being paid unless we enroll patients. Yeah, we may get our 10 to 15 to, if we're lucky, closer to $20,000 in startup for all the different things. It's like I'm being paid after that for not doing anything. So I don't know. I mean, I get it. I guess I'll be curious to see if this like dynamic changes at all over time, especially with like big site networks. And then there's still a lot of green space in terms of like clinical trials not being done in a lot of places. So I feel like there's still new sites. I know you said you've had a problem with getting naive physicians onboarded or selected, I guess. Even with like knowing to have the support of, your guys' network, which is also connected, through a CRO, which you would think would give some like, oh, okay, they've got good support at the very least, even if the physician themselves is somewhat naive.
So in my experience, at the network I was at previously, they partnered with naive investigators. And what really made the difference was relationships. Submitting feasibility questionnaires with big fat zeros on them got us nowhere, right? They didn't even make it off that first batch to get studies, but where we had a truly meaningful connection to sponsors or CROs and could explain, then we had an opportunity to get them studies. It just took a lot extra work. And that's why I'm so passionate about feasibility questionnaires just being so archaic. Like that meaningful conversation is where we get things done. What's interesting in my current role is that with IQVIA, and I'm probably sharing more than I should, but I've had an opportunity to learn and share with the CRO side. Everybody makes these assumptions that the CRO is going to use their sites. I shit you not, I work harder to get IQVIA to use us than anyone else.
Yeah, and I've heard that kind of thing before. Yeah,
everybody assumes it, and I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I work harder, and they want to see justification. If Avocare wants to be part of, if IQVIA is going to bid defense and they want Avocare to be part of what they're going to bid with, I have to be able to tell a really good story with experience and performance. And if I can't, they're pushing back on me. And I can't say, but I'm your network. You should use me for that statement alone. And that's not how it works.
Do you think it's a perception thing that if like they go to bat for their own site network and it doesn't go like extremely well, that looks worse than if you use, if it's other sites, you're like, we can't control what those other sites do. They're terrible or whatever. Versus be like, oh, well, these are our sites. So if they don't perform, it's like a double whammy in terms of the optics.
There's so much trust needed there. And I feel like nobody trusts anyone in this industry. Sites might band together. We all get like how it is, but it's just not safe, right? It's a lot of mistrust.
It's true. And I don't know the answer. I do think, and I have been, I guess, encouraged by more engagement and conversation from a sponsor level over the last, I don't know, year maybe. So I do think it's getting better. I think some sponsors are catching on to this, I think, to like, you can't just pull numbers off a page. And again, I think if sites had a relationship at the level by which they could see a pipeline, they would also, I think it's easier to say like, oh, you know what? This study is maybe not great, but this next study in the next quarter, we're going to wait. We want that one. So then sites don't feel pressured or like, oh God, we got to take this study that's coming up right now, because they know there's something else coming down the road. Does that make sense? So now you're creating a situation where there's less pressure for a site to take whatever's kind of tossed in front of them and not do well if they have confidence that there's something else coming, throughout the course of whatever, 1 to 2 quarters or whatever the case may be. So I think it would ultimately be really beneficial for sponsors. But I don't know if we'll see it at scale or not. I mean, that's probably very difficult to scale because there are thousands of sites. I mean, I guess it's getting easier as there's more consolidation because, you don't have to go to whatever, 1,000 individual sites. You could go to 10 networks or whatever. So, I mean, maybe that changes the game a little bit too.
Yeah. I always appreciate that when I complain about feasibility questionnaires. I get that they have to have a mechanism to interact with hundreds or thousands of sites and gather intel. You can't ask 1,000 people to join a roundtable and have a real conversation. It's just finding a happy medium between the two, right? That makes it a little more meaningful. Or I don't know, these FQs just suck, Brad. They suck. The questions are wrong half the time, or they're not asking the right questions.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I helped fill one out yesterday that was 90 plus questions or something. And yeah, it's crazy.
I don't want that study already. That's all I need.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of its own, its own filter, right? You're like, yeah, no, not doing that.
Let's pretend we work 8 hours a day and your FQ is going to take me 2 hours to fill out. I ain't got time for that.
What do you got, Nelson? Oh, I got click happy. Sponsors realize there's no 5'11" men on dating apps, and if you trust feasibilities, there's never been a site who's failed to perform. They're a tough spot. Maybe the solution is a greater accountability, Brad mentioned. Yeah, I mean, there are no 5'11". There's 6'2" at least, right? Yeah, I mean, and that's, that's always interesting to me too, is like, yeah, how honest do you want to be in these feasibilities, and how much are they going to check your previous trial history when they're asking? But yeah, I mean, dude, we've gotten to where like, I don't want to play. I'm trying really hard as a smaller site, or what I consider to be a smaller site, to stop taking things that we aren't pretty damn confident we're going to do, not just survive, but like do well. Now, that severely limits some of the opportunities that come through. And again, we still go run into the same fearfulness of like, oh, we just told AstraZeneca no. Are they going to be like pissed off? Are they going to like not consider us for the next study that's similar but maybe better? And I know, Nelson, I need to have you on again. because I know you do a model that's very much more focused. My camera will not stop breaking, dude. It's pissing me off. Sorry.
That one's going back.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, Nelson. I know, if I'm not mistaken, your model is you take very few studies, but you just like execute the hell out of them and like knock them out of the park. I want to talk to you for two reasons. One is I'm trying to get into a psych network, and then which I know is kind of your wheelhouse. But then secondly, like talking about how you built up to that, because, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but it seems easier said than done. But yeah, I know that's where you're coming from, so that probably paints your perspective. So I would like to have you on here pretty soon, because I mean, you guys are AvaCare is like pretty broad, I assume. Like you guys aren't like real specialized.
No, we've got a few, primarily family practice, internal med, vaccine dedicated sites. We have some derm, but there are lots of 2 CNS sites, neurology sites, 1 psych. So we have some specialties. It's just a very small scope. And it's hard right now keeping family practice, internal med. I feel like the volume is down. Maybe that's just my perspective, and it's killing it for everybody else. But I feel like the volume of studies, and we've had so many studies get canceled or pushed off to next year, that more than usual this year, I've noticed too.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that, and I wonder for us sometimes is that we're in a hospital with a lot of specialties, and a lot of our studies are like pretty specialized and require specialists. And I wonder too if that's like part of the challenge for us is like we don't have stuff that it's inherently like if you enroll 2 patients, you've succeeded. So you're not going to knock off 100. Now we have some of this cancer screening, like blood draw studies, where we are enrolling like thousands of patients, which is nice because that's, I mean, frankly, helping us keep the doors open while we sort through some of the other stuff. But I'm really curious to maybe a different conversation with more people, but like, how is your model and setup affecting your ability to succeed? Because I think there's something to it. Because I've thought about this too. Like we are kind of avoided the broader family practice stuff, which is probably not a smart idea. But I feel like leaning into the specialties instead a little bit.
I feel like that's been kind of a strategic pivot, if you will. What I keep telling BD, I'm like, a lot of our sites are family practice, internal med. So think of indications that people go to primary care offices for, your hypertension, your hyperthyroid or hypothyroidism, your dyslipidemia. Those are the indications that I want to see trials in. And a lot of feedback I get is there's not a lot of run-of-the-mill hypertension studies. There's treatment-resistant hypertension.
Yeah, right.
Where once you
do a step up.
Yeah. And then you got to start going to a cardiologist or, so it's the specialties, I feel like, is kind of where protocols are getting more complex, where the patients may exist in a primary care database, but they've been referred to a specialist for management of that condition.
Well, yeah, I feel like the problem is a lot of the patients they want are the patients who are in between. So just to your point, it's either like, great, if you need a newly diagnosed hypertension, great. You can be in your family practice, makes perfect sense. If you want treatment resistant, that's fine. You can go to a cardiologist, but the problem is they can only have failed 2 or something like that. And then you're like, okay, well, people are either too soon or too late. And finding the person like just in between, we see it with migraine. You can find migraine patients in a headache specialist clinic, which we have access to, or family practice, but not if they can only have failed or only have tried 2 different drug classes. Well, then it gets weird because like that doctor is, by the time they get referred, that headache specialist is putting them on all the things, and working through them. By then it's too late.
Right.
Yeah. We see that again. We see it in GI. We see it in, even in dermatology where like, hey, you can't have ever taken, Dupixent. Well, who hasn't taken Dupixent? So, but yeah. Yeah, it's tough, but I guess that's why we do what we do, right? I mean, it ain't easy. Everybody be doing it.
Very true.
That's what I tell myself when I'm crying to sleep at night. Cool. We're down to the last 5 minutes. I mean, anything else you want to shout out in particular?
Big shout out for SCRS, man. I was thrilled I was able to go this year. Really looking forward to next year. I heard it's not in Hollywood. I think it's Orlando next year. But that whole group, I love everything that they do. So big shout out to SCRS.
Yeah, they do a lot for the industry, a lot for sites. I've not made one of their big. Never been to one of their global summits or whatever, so I need to make it down there one of these times.
Here, we'll do a trio Shania Twain karaoke.
Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll talk. We'll talk.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for jumping on, guys. Keep comments, questions coming. I'm trying to get back into the swing of doing this every week. So I'll plan ahead and get some guests on, and anything you guys want to hear. If you want to come on, let me know. Otherwise, keep an eye out for Tuesdays at noon Eastern. And that's it. Cool. Thanks, Kylie.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.